Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
All right.
What up?
What's up, everybody? This is another episode of Mystery Bros. We got a pretty cool topic for you today. Super interesting, very mysterious. I didn't realize how cool this was until I started doing the research for it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting. Like, historical mystery, kind of. Something that we know for sure is real, at least. That's not always a given on Mystery Bros.
I know. We're diving back into like another ancient episode. We're going to go over something.
Not really ancient.
Well, I would say not. I'm saying we're going back into another historical.
Historical, yeah. Not quite ancient. Not that old.
It's still old. 600
pretty
years.
Old. Pretty old. Yeah. Yeah. You know, 600 plus years ago. That's pretty old. But I feel like ancient refers to more like BC and stuff like that. But
all right, it's not ancient. We're giving you another historical episode then. We'll put it that way.
Anyways. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the Voynich Manuscript, or the Voynich Manuscript.
Yes. Then we're also going to talk about the Piri Reis Map at the end.
Yes. Two historical, like
documents that are very interesting, very mysterious.
Yes,
and there's a lot of
very cool stuff. So we're going to get into that stuff today. So I'm going to start with the modern story of the Voynich Manuscript real quick, just to kind of lay it out. So July 27th, 1960, in New York City.
That's not that old.
Well, wait. In New York City, Ethel Voynich, she dies in her apartment, right? She was old. She was like in her 90s, so it was a natural death, but she dies in her apartment. And she didn't have any children or any other like family member or relatives left. So her husband had been dead for almost 30 years at this point. Her husband was William Voynich. But they had, one of her good friends in her later part of her life was Anne Nill. She also lived with her. I'm sure she kind of cared for her towards the end there. And Anne Nill and Ethel Voynich became very close. So she was left, basically Anne Nill was left everything from Ethel Voynich. Like all of her possessions were theirs. They left it to her in the will. So Anne finds in a bank vault that was owned by Mr. and Mrs. Voynich, they find a small manuscript.
Ooh.
with no title on it, no name or anything. And inside there was a letter written by Mrs. Voynich, and it said, "This is not to be opened by anyone other than Anne Nill," or I think she said like, or somebody else like reliable in case she's not. In case Anne Nill is dead.
I would have opened the book right then there. Like if you said like this can't be opened by your brother, I would have opened it right then and there. Like what are you talking about? Why are you playing favorites here?
You're gonna get into some stuff you shouldn't get into. How many horror movies have you seen that start by like just like that, Arel? Well, Anne's the one that found it because she went to the vault after the death of Ethel. So. The manuscript was small. It wasn't that big. It had no title on it, no name, nothing like that. It was extremely worn. Like there was some watermarks on it. There was some rips. There were holes in it from bugs that had gotten it over the what we come to find out is centuries. And when Anne first opened it, she found just really strange writing. Just a bunch of writing that really made no sense at all. There was no language that she recognized. And then all kinds of like really colorful illustrations throughout the pages as well. And like the illustrations were pretty big and actually very beautiful looking, she said. She had no idea what it was. She was like, what the hell is this?
If she didn't know what it is, like she probably was fascinated by the drawings But she probably thought like at the time that it was like maybe a language that was easily deciphered.
Yeah, she didn't know it was. She just didn't recognize it at the time. We come to find out that William Voynich, he'd had the manuscript in his possession for about 50 years. All right, he had it for a long time. During that time, he had tried to decipher it himself, tried to break the code because he wanted to sell it for like a really expensive price, and he wanted it to be able to, you know what I mean?
If someone able to read it,
he wanted people to be able to read it.
He wanted to make a fortune off it. Like, dude, this ticket.
Exactly. But he tried like almost like 30 to 40 years.
Yeah, that's what they said, almost 40 years.
He tried figuring it out and he could not.
Man, just spending your life's work and just not getting anywhere.
Yeah, right. That's crazy. So within a year, Anne Nill sold it. She sold it for a lot of money, apparently. Because I think at that time, I think at that time, you could tell that it was super, super old, and it was probably just considered like special. So she got a lot of money for it. I don't know. And the buyer spent almost a decade trying to decipher it himself.
That's why he bought it.
He's
like, "Ooh, I'm going to try to
exactly.
figure this out."
Once it's deciphered, I bet you can get way more money for it. So he tried to decipher it for almost a decade. All right, and in 1969, he gave it to. He basically just donated it to Yale University, which is where it is today. It's encased inside Yale University building, and they've done some studies on it and all that. But first, I kind of want to dig into what it was, what it looked like, what, you know what I mean? It's about 8.8 inches tall by about 6.3 inches long. So it's really not that big. It's not that big. It's, you know, like your average like paperback book that you find nowadays, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's really not that big. 8 inches by 6. It contained about 240 pages, and it was believed that there was about 30 pages that are missing.
Ooh.
And some of that they know, like there's tears of like pages that they know are gone. Some are just like were cut. They don't really know if like he did that because he screwed up something, or if they were removed later. But so about 240 pages, 30 pages are missing. And it's sorted into 18 chapters. There's 18 different like sections of the book. And they believe there was 20 originally. 2 of those are missing.
Oh.
That's part of the 30 missing pages.
Eerie.
Yeah, and it's made from folios, which are like pages that are kind of like folded in so that you can like pull them out and you know what I mean? And then they kind of bind all those together to make the book.
So you can't like fold out and like...
So it can fold out some ways, like if you wanted to write...
like to see like a picture.
Exactly, that kind of thing. Like, yeah, so it's like pages that kind of fold out. And then some folios are folded over like multiple times, so it's almost like you open it up to like a poster type thing, you know? It's basically filled with a lot of writing and a lot of pictures or drawings. The calligraphy is like very neat, very meticulous. You know, like it looks like it was written very well. Like they took their time in writing it. It's very proper, very neat looking. But the writing is all in a completely unknown language. Still to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's a language or a code, we don't know. I mean, it doesn't look like any of the languages that we currently have because there's not much. I heard like not much of a lot of competing, like a lot of similar symbols that you would see like repeat.
Yeah. It doesn't like it. If you look at it, it looks like it's English, but it's definitely not. It's in the same format as English, I think. Like there's words and
pictures are very interesting. It's like it kind of looks like a dark alchemy book to me.
Yes, it's really crazy. So like we said, there's lots of illustrations in the book. They're very colorful. they're painted with like red, blue, green, and yellow.
Ooh.
So those are the 4 colors that he'd used. And the cool part about it is like a lot of the pictures, a lot of the drawings are like intertwined in the pages with the writing. Like there'll be like writing to the left with like a picture in the middle and then more writing on the right. Like it's not formatted like a proper like novel, would be. It's just kind of like some text with some pictures and then some more text with more pictures. And the pictures kind of, they think coincide with the text around it. So this book has been studied and it's kind of been grouped into different sections, based off of the illustrations. The illustrations are really all we have to go off with this book. Like I said,
that's what they base what this book is about.
Exactly. That's what they base the contents of the book on, is the illustrations, because we don't know anything about the language. We cannot decipher it. So it's split up into 6 different types. Each type has like there's like I said, there's 18 like chapters in there. Each chapter is mainly filled with one type of picture. So that's kind of how we figured that it's organized. Like this section is about this section is about that, based off of what type of pictures are in there, what type of drawings. So the first type, or the first section, is called the herbal or botanical sections. And these contain drawings of like herbs or plants. Some of which look real, like realistic types of plants from that time period. And then others seem pretty strange and imaginary.
Like not known.
Yeah, stuff that doesn't look like anything that we know of. The imaginary ones look really weird too. Like if you look at the pictures, first off, I want to say if you can go to voynich.nu, and it's basically like an entire internet database on the Voynich Manuscript, and it has like every page like on there that you can look at. So you can go look at all these drawings, and they're really, I would check it out. Like, trust me, they're really cool, really weird, really ominous. There's some really interesting drawings in there, and there's a ton of them. Almost every page has drawings on it. I think there's only like 5 or 6 pages that are text only.
They probably don't even look at those pages. They have nothing to theorize.
There's nothing you can do about
just
those
like,
pages.
oh, okay, I don't know what these are.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about those. So a lot of the study has been done on the illustrations.
Dude, like, I wonder how long like people have like looked at that text. Like, how many hours they spent just looking at like what the heck it could be.
People spent decades looking. Like Voynich spent so much time researching and trying to figure out. He spent a lot of time trying to figure out where it came from too, but he also spent a lot of time trying to decipher it. And I can't even imagine, He like looked at that and like, all right, can't make sense of this today.
How do you, looks at it like 2 years later, it's like, I'm no closer to where I was today.
I know that there's ways, there's definitely ways, of encrypting and enciphering things. And there's people that know how to like try and figure that out, but I can't even understand where you would start. How would you just look at a bunch of random gibberish and be like, I'm going to try and figure this out?
We look for repeating patterns. That's the first thing you look for. And that's the thing. There's no repeating patterns.
Yeah, it's just, it's crazy. But so anyway, so there was the herbal or botanical sections. Then there's the astronomical/astrological sections. Now, some people consider those 2 separate sections, but in the stuff I was looking in, they clumped those 2 sections together, the astronomical and astrological. These have drawings of like the sun, the moon, arrangements of stars, that kind of stuff. Some cool stuff there too. There's also 2 like concentric circles with like small figures holding stars and emblems of zodiac signs. So they believe that it's something that's the astrological. Like the author was interested in the zodiac symbols, zodiac signs. Yeah, so it had drawings of the zodiac signs with like stars, sun, moon, that kind of thing. they're a little eerie if you check them out. And then after that, there's the cosmological section. And then after that, there's the cosmological section. And that features like geometric designs. Like this one, I think is the most mysterious section of the book is what people like to say. And it's also small. There's not a whole lot in the cosmological section, but this section includes like the most famous drawing in there called the Network of Rosettes, which is basically like a really large, like complicated drawing that has 9 circles and they're all kind of like connected to each other. And this one, it folds out into like multiple pages. So it's like almost like 6 pages. And when you fold it out, it's just one big picture of like 9 different circles that are all kind of connected together. It's weird, huh?
That is strange.
Yeah, no one really knows what this is. It's just some really interesting symbols that this guy drew. That's weird.
I guess everything about the book's weird.
Everything, yeah, you're right. Everything about it is weird, but that's just really interesting how it.
Whoever spent like a lot of time doing
exactly,
this.
Yeah.
Detailed.
Definitely. Then the next section, what I think the most interesting is the biological section. And this one contains drawings of like human figures. They're mainly unclothed females. So, you know, maybe he got a little lonely or something, or maybe,
or maybe describing the female, like something to do with that.
He was interested in the female anatomy.
Yeah, it could have been something like that.
But it wasn't. It was just pictures. It was pictures of naked women, and
maybe that was some 14th century porn right there.
Maybe. There was also like in some section or in some illustrations, the women were like connected by like these like tunnels or vessels. There's a couple interesting. When you look at it, it almost looks like Super Mario. You know how they have the pipes in Super Mario that you can go down? It's like women with their arms that were like connected by like those pipes.
Yeah,
that's what it looked like to me.
There's another one where like the women are in green bathing tubs.
Yeah,
So that one is freaky. I think those are freaky.
Yeah, a lot of illustrations of women they're surrounded by like a green pool. Now, some people say that it could be clouds, but I think most people believe it's some sort of pool of water or a bath or something like that. And then there's also illustrations where there's like women going through like tunnels. Like it almost looks like they're in a cave or something and they're going through like tunnels. All of them are naked, by the way. I don't think he drew any women in there with their clothes on in the whole book.
Is there any male?
No.
Oh, so this is really one-sided.
I mean, I don't think that there's any. I think it's just
maybe it was a book about female anatomy, and that's in that section. That's what
it doesn't seem like it though, because it's not like Da Vinci where it's like drawing like it's like pictures of women like in these pools or that kind of thing. Scholars have independently pointed out that this section looks very familiar to another manuscript from the 1300s about medicinal baths. Like, apparently, there's some other manuscripts from around the 1300s that we know of that have pictures that are very similar to this. And those are about, like, medicinal baths.
So they're trying to tie the connection that this is probably what it was about.
Yeah, they think it had something to do with that.
It's very possible. I mean, if it's around that time, it could very easily be that. But
some people think that this section is actually two separate parts that just accidentally like got binded together at some point. And there's actually some interesting evidence for that. There's an illustration on two separate pages, one on like the 37th and one on like the 40th but they connect. Like if you put them together, it makes one big picture. So they think that these sections were not supposed to be together, and they got binded together at some point.
Oh, so like two different sections originally.
Yeah, it was separate originally, and then it got kind of binded together, which is pretty interesting. So maybe at some point, maybe the person who actually wrote it and illustrated it wasn't the person who got it binded together. I don't know, but then the next section is the pharmaceutical section. And this one has illustrations of like strange containers consisting of like multiple parts, usually like on top of each other. If you look at it, it almost looks kind of like a hookah. Like a
mid-ancient hookah,
like an old hookah. Like it's like they're mainly like cylindrical containers that are kind of like on top of each other.
Maybe that's how they got their herbs back then. Like, yo, take a hit of this. This will.
Yeah, who knows? Man? But I don't think it had any smoke or anything coming from it. It just looks like that. That's what I thought when I saw it. It looks kind of like a hookah. Some sections, like some of the pieces are empty, and then some of them have like different liquids in them that are just painted different colors. So no one really knows what that's about. And also, many people believe that this section was unfinished.
Oh, so he never got to finish.
He never finished the pharmaceutical section, what they believe. So maybe the person who wrote it died while writing it. Who knows?
Maybe got bored.
Yeah, it almost, so if you think about how they believe that the biological section is actually like split in two and it's not binded correctly, as well as the pharmaceutical section they don't think is finished. Like that leads me to believe maybe the person died, before he could finish it, and somebody else took it and tried to like got it bound together and
finish it for him.
No, they didn't finish it. It's still unfinished. According to the pharmaceutical section, at least, is unfinished.
Maybe they were waiting for like some new findings to come out or something.
Yeah, they just died or something. But yeah, so that's really weird that section they believe is unfinished. And then the next section is marginal stars section. And that one's a little different. It basically just contains like a bunch of text with like little stars drawn next to that. This section is often referred to as the recipe section because they believe that like all those stars, like there's the text and the stars next to it. That was kind of like the author's way of doing like bullet points, So I think maybe it was some sort of recipe section.
Thing. How do you make these things?
Yeah,
what to do with women in green bathtubs? This is what you do when you find yourself in that situation.
So yeah. That one is referred to as the marginal star section, and that one we can't really know much about because there are really no illustrations other than the little stars next to the text.
Right. Evan, I bet you if we got the Voynich manuscript, we could decode in 2 hours.
Deal. No, I don't think so. I've looked at it, dude. It's really interesting.
I wouldn't even try. Like if they said like, Aral, you're gonna be put on the Voynich manuscript and you're gonna try to decode that for the next 2 years. I'm like, no.
I wouldn't. Yeah, like I said earlier, like I don't even know if I would know where to start. Like,
I would just be like, I would just look at it and be
even
like,
if I found like common, like, repeating stuff, like it wouldn't. I'm just not the type of dude to do that. There's people that study that kind of stuff, and
but like the fail rate on this is just like I wouldn't take on such a challenge just knowing that like so many people have failed before you. It's like, dude, I'm gonna look at the same thing for like the same amount of time and come up with nothing.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's, I'm sure there are people still trying to, but, there's been, the text has undergone like extensive analysis, like thousands of different code breakers have tried to decipher and figure it out. They've also literally had computer programs like trying to break the code and trying to figure out to decipher it, and not even the computer programs can figure that out. No code breakers can do it. Everyone has failed, basically. Everyone who's tried has failed. Even
and there's people claiming to have like, oh, we figured it out, and no. And I think the fail rate is the real reason why some people think it's like not real, because a lot of people maybe just think it's gibberish because like no one can figure it out. But I think it's just too well made for that to be the case.
If you haven't looked at it online, you should go check it out. It's really cool. Like, me describing all the illustrations gives you a little bit of an idea, but if you actually go look at it, it's so cool. It's so different. There's also a lot of different animals that are in there. There's drawings of like snakes, goats, frogs, birds, different types of birds. There's a dragon. There's a picture of a dragon.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then there's also some like animals that we don't really know what he was trying to draw there. So there's just a lot of really cool stuff.
A lot of mystery about it.
A lot of mysterious stuff, yeah. And I mean, the pictures are all we have to go off of as far as like what this book was.
But it seems important to be locked away and for only this Miss Anne to read the book.
Yeah, I know, right? Anne Nil.
Yeah, I know.
Anne Nil just sold it in less than a year. She was like, I don't know what to do with this thing.
Basically, like, life's work, like, the person who gave it to Anne probably like, oh, she's going to do a lot of research. She's going to dedicate her life to this. And then Anne just took it and was like, dude, I'm just going to make a bunch of money and just sell it.
I don't know. I don't know if she thought that Anne would be able to figure it out and crack it. I just thought she wanted it to go to Anne because she trusted Anne and like,
didn't think Anne would sell it within a year.
Not necessarily that. Just know that she wouldn't just like throw it away or something. Obviously,
just being like, "What is this? All right, like let's just like donate this to like the homeless shelter or something."
We'll give this to the library. But yeah, so I kind of want to go into like a complete like history of the book as far as we know. So the complete history is still unknown, but we do have some clues and some facts about who had it at certain times,
right?
Because that's something that people have really tried to figure out. That's something William Voynich actually figured out a lot about
where it came from,
who had it at certain time periods.
When Anne got it, there was letters, right, that were with the book.
Yes. So yeah, that's exactly what I was about to get into. So there was a letter that was preserved inside of it. It wasn't when Anne got it, I don't think, but there was a letter that was preserved inside of it when William Voynich bought it. And he bought it around 1911, 1912, sometime around there. But there was a letter that was preserved inside of it. The letter was written by a Prague scientist named Johannes Marcus Marci, and the letter was written in 1665.
Ooh.
Super old already. That's like 400 years ago, not quite, 350-ish, somewhere around there. That's wow.
Yeah.
And in the letter, he was presenting the book to Athanasius Kircher. The name, I don't know about the first name, but Kircher.
Lovely name, I like it.
Yeah, it was Kircher, who was like a scholar, a very big scholar back in the time in Rome. He was giving it to Kircher in Rome, and he thought that in the letter he believed that Kircher may be able to decipher it because he's a very smart scholar, and he's kind of looked into that kind of stuff before. He's done a lot of deciphering, that kind of thing. He's looked into hieroglyphics, that kind of stuff. So he thought that he may be able to decipher it because the previous owner wasn't able to do that. And then in the letter, he also states that the previous owner was Emperor Rudolph II, and he was the King of Bohemia.
King of Bohemia, is that like a country?
It was back then.
Bohemia was a country.
It was like Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and then also some parts of like what is now Germany. So it was pretty big, but it was right Central Europe back then, back in the 1600s, around that time period. Also, in the letter, he wrote he believed the author was Roger Bacon, the Englishman. On this point, I suspended judgment. That's what Marci wrote. So, saying that King King Rudolph thought that it was written by the Englishman Roger Bacon. But I don't think he believed that. He said, I suspend judgment. So he said, I don't really believe that. And we'll get into later. That's basically proven to be wrong, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. So there's also a faded or erased name that was written on the first page. And it's these names. I'm sorry. I'm probably butchering these names. Jacobus de Teponic, which they found out was a courtier of King Rudolph, which kind of confirmed that King Rudolph did have it at that time, like it says in the letter.
That's interesting.
Which is pretty cool.
That a king had it must have been very important.
Yeah, they say that King Rudolph was really interested in that kind of stuff. He liked books on like alchemy and like science books, that kind of stuff. So he would try and
naked women.
So he would try and like purchase them when he could. So they think that he probably purchased this book from somebody. But we actually have no idea, to be honest. King Rudolph, we don't even know when exactly he bought it.
Do they even know? Did they have anything before King Rudolph?
No, that's what I'm saying. They don't know anything about the book
think he could have
before
funded
King
it?
Rudolph.
Like he could have funded a project on it or something like that?
No, they believe he bought it. He said that he bought it for 600 ducats.
600 ducats?
Yes. King Rudolph bought it for 600 ducats off of we don't know who.
Ducats. What a currency name.
Yeah, that must have been what they used in Bohemia.
Was that a lot? 600 ducats?
I don't know. I don't know what ducats are. I'm not
it probably
an expert on like old currency. I don't know.
I wonder if it was like, it probably was expensive. I don't think like it was
600. That sounds like a lot. So it probably wasn't cheap, but I don't know what anything cost back then. Maybe a slice of bread was 500 ducats. But, who knows? But so the timeline, we don't know anything prior to King Rudolph. And then King Rudolph died in 1609, and that's when they believe it went to a guy named this name I'm gonna butcher it. It's Horchichi or something like that. That's the way that it was pronounced, but it's spelled very differently. So it was like Horchichi.
Horchichi.
Yes, and he was a friend of King Rudolph, and they believe that King Rudolph gave it to him after he died, or it was like it went to him after King Rudolph died. And he had it from 1609 to 1622. And then in 1622, it went to someone named Bertius. And then Bertius died, and it went to Marcy, which is the person who wrote the letter. And in the letter, he explains that he bought it. He got it off of Bertius. He inherited it from Bertius. And so Marcis in the letter said, I want to give it to Kircher. So 1662, Marcy got it from Bertius, and then he immediately gave it to Kircher. And Kircher was in possession of it from 1662 to 1680. All right? Because that's when he died. After that, we don't really know. There's like a 200-year like gap period because we don't really know much about who had it after Kircher and before Voynich. So we don't really know much after 1680 all the way to like 1911, 1912.
So it's just between that time period, it just ended up in 1912.
There was no
at an antique store or something like that.
I guess, there was no I don't know if it was an antique store, but it was like someone who collected like
old books.
Yeah, not necessarily old books, someone who just collected artifacts and stuff like that, and I think that he had it, and then Voynich bought it off of him. But yeah, so we only really have an account for it from around 1600 to 1680. Yeah, so Voynich really tried to study all this. Voynich was the one who figured most of this out, and he also had some theories about who had it prior to King Rudolph. He actually went into like who was known to like be around King Rudolph.
Did he like go through like archives or like writing?
He went. I'm sure it wasn't only him, but he kind of talked to other professors and stuff from like historians, that kind of thing, and tried to get as best a picture he could. And he like figured out like all the different people that King Rudolph would like buy books from in his area, and he tried to figure out who he may have bought it off of, but he was never able to like successfully like prove who had it before that. So we really don't know. But he does have some theories, and if you want to go into those, there are some interesting theories that he has. You can look that up. Everything you can find, anything you could ever want to know about the Voynich manuscript, you can find it on that voynich.nu website. So if you really want to dive really, really deep into this kind of stuff, or the Voynich manuscript, then just go ahead to that website. You can check stuff out. So then there has been some modern day analysis, like after it was given to the Yale University, and it's been able to kind of fill in some details here. So in 2009, the University of Arizona performed radiocarbon dating on the manuscript to try and figure out when it was created. And the date of the parchment was established to be between 1404 and 1438 with a 95% probability. So they can say pretty confidently that the parchment was created between 1404 and 1438.
And King
Rudolph didn't have it until around 1600.
So there's a good 200-year gap before him.
Yes. Now, I said earlier we'd get back to this. Remember how in the note that Marcy wrote, he said that King Rudolph believed Roger Bacon was the author? Roger Bacon was an Englishman, like alchemist, scientist, but he died in like 1290. So it's kind of, that almost kind of proves that to be wrong. I mean, we have a 95% probability that the parchment was created in 1404 to 1438. So I don't know how Roger Bacon could have written it when he died in 1290.
So this book has been talked about for quite a long time.
Yeah, from 1609 to around 1680, there's been a few letters written about it. There was a letter between Bertius and Kircher as well about it. We'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But yeah, so in 2014, it was established by the Yale University that there were only minor variations in the ink composition throughout the manuscript. They think it was written probably within like a 2 to 5 year period. You know,
oh, interesting.
Because the variations in the ink are only minor. So like if it was like if some of it was written in ink that was 1404 and then some of it was written in ink that was like 1430, there would be more variations in the ink.
And there's not. Yeah,
and there just isn't. So they believe it didn't take the author more than 5 years to write the whole thing. And the composition of the paint is consistent with like Middle Ages Europe. They stated it was most likely written in the first half of the 15th century, which also coincides with the carbon dating that the parchment was between 1404 and 1430. So based off of modern science and what we've been able to figure out, we believe that it was written in the early 1400s.
In the medieval times, basically.
Yeah. Old school. So that's it's over 600 years. We've tried to pinpoint the origin by using clues in the manuscript. And this is kind of interesting. So the drawing of a castle in the manuscript might be a hint. The castle that was drawn is of a building style that was found predominantly in northern Italy in the 14th century and onward. While castles like this are found in other areas of Italy and Central Europe, they clearly resemble the Scaliger family, which was of the region of Verona in the 14th century.
Oh, that's interesting. So these castles are actually like based off of real.
Maybe. They don't like have a specific castle that they know of, but they think that the style of building is very similar to the Scaliger family, which was in Verona in the 14th century, and that type of architecture, that type of building was predominantly in northern Italy.
He could have been like an Italian author and just in that area, and just that's how he knew castles were made.
Yeah, maybe. You know, that's what they're suggesting. They're suggesting that like he was from the northern Italy region. What they think is now northern Italy, by the way. It's not like he was Italian, but like that the region that is now called northern Italy. There are other manuscripts with very similar drawings of castles, and we know that those manuscripts originate from northern Italy, from that time period as well. So that gives kind of a
strong clue to Italy.
Yeah, that gives kind of a clue. Another interesting clue is the drawing of Sagittarius in the Voynich manuscript. Normally, Sagittarius, the zodiac sign, it's a centaur with the arrow, but in this one, in the Voynich manuscript, it was just a human figure with a crossbow. Similar depictions of Sagittarius, where it's just the human, have been found in German manuscripts from around the 15th century.
Okay.
So another kind of pinpoint to that region. But yeah, so that's really the only clues that we have as to where it may have come from. You know, what is now northern Italy is what they believe, just based off of some of the drawings and stuff in there. And then based off of carbon dating, we know it was probably written somewhere between 1404 and 1430 something. So we kind of, we know some things about it, but it's still very mysterious as to who wrote it. We still don't know that. And we still don't know what it says. So it's still a huge mystery in that department. Even though we have used some modern science and modern technology to be able to figure out some things about it.
I'm sure we'll invent some supercomputer one day. I'll just like read it like that. Maybe.
But I mean, over the centuries, many people have tried to decipher this, and to figure out what it was about, but no one's really been able to figure that out. There are many theories about it as to what it is, what it's talking about. There is a theory that it was a hoax. It was created by John Dee, and he tried to lie to Rudolph II about the mystery of its origin so he could get more money for it from him. But based off of what we just talked about, how it was carbon dated back to the 1400s,
it would have been unlikely. Yeah,
it's very unlikely. And then also some people have done some deep dives into John Dee and his relationship with King Rudolph, and they say that they didn't have the relationship that people thought when they made this theory. They thought John Dee was like a huckster and that type of thing, but it turns out he really wasn't. And they thought that he was like a big part of the king's court, and he actually wasn't. So that theory, most people don't believe that theory, but that is a theory out there that it was a hoax written by John Dee, and it really doesn't say anything. It's just a hoax. But why would you make such an intricate book?
Make money?
A hoax. Yeah.
I mean, maybe he was trying to say like, yo, King Rudolph, like this UFO, this alien that just gave me this book. Like it's not from this origin. Like buy it, take it. And
it's obvious that that's not true, though.
I know, but like you could just make up like a story, like Atlanteans gave it to me, or like or like I got this from a mysterious place.
He said no one knows anything about it, type of thing. Like he was like, it's a mysterious book, no one knows anything about it, so that's why he wanted to get some more money for it.
That could also be the case, yeah.
But most people don't think that's true. Bertius, who was a guy who owned the book after King Rudolph. he spent a lot of time studying it and trying to decipher it as well. And he believed it was a medical manual. The herbs and the plants section kind of lead to that. And then like the pharmaceutical section, it almost looks like it was like a very old time medical manual. He wrote a letter to Kircher, talking about it. And he basically, this is what it said. It said, from the pictures of herbs, for which there are a great many in the codex, and varied images of stars and other things bearing the appearance of chemical symbolism, it is my guess that the whole thing is medical, the most beneficial brand of learning for the human race apart from salvation of souls. So he's basically saying he thinks it was a medical journal because medical is very important to humans, trying to learn how to heal wounds, that kind of thing. Like that was very important back then. So he believes that it was some sort of medical manuscript.
I definitely think it's a medical manuscript because it just makes a lot of sense. Like what it's describing, it's like, especially with the zodiac symbols too. Like the symbols are describing, like back, I heard in the medieval times, in order to get treatment, you had to know what your zodiac symbol was.
Yeah.
So,
zodiac signs were very ingrained with science and medicine back then.
Yes. So that's a huge proponent of it. And I think just the way how it describes like female naked bodies and all that, like it was just like biology and like just.
It doesn't really do that though. You're thinking of like Da Vinci. It doesn't. The pictures of the naked women aren't like pictures of their body, like that type of thing. It's
no,
just,
but like in like the baths, like in the baths that they're in.
Yeah, medicinal baths was a thing.
That's what I'm thinking of. Medicinal baths.
Yeah, medicinal baths was a thing. Plus the pharmaceutical section looked like it was like combining liquids and stuff and trying to create some sort of medicine. Plus there's the herbal
potion.
section,
Yes.
which back then people used plants and herbs to try and treat things. So I really think it is a medical journal.
It has to be, unless it's just like some fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, the rosettes is interesting though. That picture where it's just the 9 circles, all like no one's really tried to decipher anything about that. No one's figured anything out there of what those could be. But yeah, like you said, like the zodiac signs, the star alignments, all that kind of stuff, that was kind of considered medical knowledge back then. They would use that to heal. And then alchemy, like creating potions, that kind of thing. That looks very similar to the pharmaceutical section where it has all the different liquids, that kind of thing. It's like they were trying to create some sort of potions for ailments, that kind of thing, which was big back then. That's what they did. They didn't have surgery. They didn't have any of that kind of stuff. They just tried to use herbs and plants. So yeah, I think it was some sort of medical journal, but
definitely some
it's
chemistry
so strange
thing.
that it was just written in a completely
code. Probably a code. I feel like it couldn't have lost language between that time.
no. It had to be some sort of code language, which was common. Like there's been throughout the history, people have used like ciphers and stuff to encode like messages to each other and that kind of thing. They believe that back then, a lot of like scientists and doctors, that kind of thing, they wanted to keep their knowledge to themselves. They didn't, because like if you tell everybody, then anyone can do it. That's how you made your money back then. It's how you survived, was by doing medicine probably. So you didn't want everyone to know all of your like secrets. So they would write stuff like that in decipher code. I mean, Da Vinci did it.
Right.
His entire journal was written like it's like mirror image. It's written backwards.
Some people do think Da Vinci actually wrote the Voynich Manuscript because the drawings are some point out some of the drawings are eerily similar. So as a child, Da Vinci could have written it. And
it
there's
would
some
have
proponents
to be as a child.
That's what
because
they're saying.
If you look at the Da Vinci journals, his drawings look very good. His drawings look real. Like this was more cartoonish.
Saying. It's like this could be in like him when a child when he's learning how to draw. Some amateur. This was his first real gig. Except it's a little hard to believe. I think it's because like there's no like him signing or anything like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way to ever figure that out because he's Da Vinci there's nothing written about it. We're never going to be able to figure out whether he wrote it, but I get why they would make that connection and why they would try and make that connection, because he did a lot of this stuff. He did write in a lot of ciphers. He wrote code languages, that kind of thing. But Da Vinci was more like inventive. Like he was trying to invent things, right? Like he invented
I know, it's
like,
just a theory. It's just
helicopters, that kind of, that kind of thing. So I can see where they make that connection possibly. But yeah, as far as like what it says, I don't know if we'll ever know.
One day a supercomputer, after like some guy's been looking at it for 60 years, he just puts it onto a supercomputer like 2 seconds later, just like gives him an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably have to be some sort of like quantum computer that can calculate so many different possibilities. That'd be the only way that we'd ever be able to crack it, because I don't think it's very hard. We don't know even where to start right now, so I don't know if we're ever going to figure it out.
Maybe it wasn't written on this earth, Evan.
There's also been some claims recently in like 2019 of people saying that they think that they cracked the code and this stuff.
It's nothing.
But they didn't, right?
No, all it really says, like, there's a new language, which wasn't really true. And they pointed these things, and I think it got rebuked on a scholarly review.
Okay, reviews are like, no, this is nonsense. Yeah. But
probably got a lot of clicks, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. It was clickbait. If you see some articles that are saying that they deciphered it, don't click that shit.
Unless it's from like a newsworthy source. I think it'll be big news if we ever.
If we ever do, sure. But I don't think that's anywhere in the near future.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, like, we're no closer to deciphering it than Bertius and King Rudolph and everyone was 300 years ago.
Yeah, we're still talking about the same things.
Yeah, we still know less or just as much about as they do.
I think that's like, especially those people that like took their time to study this. Like, man, I've looked at this 10 years now, and I'm really at the same place I was when I first looked at it.
Yeah. I think Voynich eventually just started looking into the origin of it and trying to figure out.
Because it's like, dude, I'm never
There's no way I'm going to decipher this. This is insane. I'm just going to try and figure out who owned it, who wrote it, that type of thing, he still never really figured that out.
But there's letters and stuff is kind of interesting because it shows like this was talked about book. This was interesting.
Yeah.
It was what people wanted to know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a mystery for a while.
Some of the people though, like they think they don't think Kircher ever even really looked at it at all. He was like a super like scholar back in the day. He was very prominent. Like he would talk to all the different kings and stuff. And they think that he just was busy with doing more important things in his mind than trying to figure this out. So he never did.
Or he could have looked at it and just been like, okay, like
he had it for a long time. I think Kircher had it for like 40 years.
Or he could be like, I got back to it. I'll get back to it. And just never got back to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what they said. Like he just never really looked into it. He didn't want to be bothered with something like this. He was doing very important things, which apparently he was. He was, deciphering codes for kings and queens, that kind of thing. Plus, he was looking into like knowledge. Like he was a scholar.
What if we don't have like the response letter? What if he like wrote a response letter? We just don't have it. Like, yo, I actually found out what this is, and it was this.
That's the thing. Who knows? Dude, at any point in the time period, someone may have figured it out, and then that got lost, and then we don't know. Right? That's basically what we know about the Voynich Manuscript. There's not really much about it. As everything else in Mystery Bros, I don't think we'll ever know in our lifetime. Maybe in like 20, 30 years, maybe like you said, some like supercomputer that they can feed it into that and it can crack the code, but I don't think any person's going to figure it out. But it's really cool. You should honestly go look at it. It's really neat. Like the illustrations are cool. Some of them are creepy. Some of them are really colorful. Some of them, I mean, like all the herbs and stuff look really cool. The pictures of like the bathhouses and the women and is weird. The astrological signs, the cosmological, like all the geometric circles, that kind of stuff. Like it's just, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. So I would say check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. if
Definitely.
you're interested in like history and like mysterious history, I would definitely check that out.
Books, health, chemistry, alchemy,
All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
sorcery.
Well, yeah. So,
So now we're gonna get into the Piri Reis map. Definitely one of the most interesting maps that we have found, and it shows a portion of the world that has not really been discovered at that time. So it got a lot of intrigue.
okay.
So kind of the story behind it. The map was discovered on October 9th, 1929. A German philosopher trying to like look through things, and he came across some old discarded stuff when he was at the Tokala Palace Library.
Okay.
So he kind of came up with some old discarded stuff, and in there was the Piri Reis map. The map was Piri Reis himself. Who Piri Reis is? He was an admiral for the Navy back for the Ottoman Empire in the 16th century.
Wow.
And he was well respected. Traveled the world, kind of did that kind of thing. So his map not traveled the world. I guess he just traveled.
Was he like a cartographer? Like he made other maps? Or no.
So this is where it kind of comes into. So the map was actually based on older maps. Before him. He says specifically the maps that he used were Arabic maps, Indian maps, and some of Columbus's old maps.
Okay. And he basically like kind of put them together as like a composite.
Yes.
And made the Piri Reis map.
Based on
Piri Reis.
based on his own experience.
Was it a map of the whole world?
It shows the world. It shows. So this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
It supposedly shows Antarctica without ice.
Ooh.
And it matches Antarctica's description very well. Like the
mountains
and everything, like to the letter. So I have this, the U.S. Air Force Cartography Division
Yeah.
wrote that the claim that Piri Reis was describing Antarctica seems reasonable based on the charts and everything, but don't know how possible since it shows Antarctica without any ice.
Ooh. So as far as the mountains and just the landmass itself, it resembled Antarctica pretty well.
It almost to the
Almost
letter.
perfectly.
Yeah.
But it just didn't have ice on it, huh?
Didn't have ice, and the last time it's been without ice, you'd have to go back 10,000 years.
Wow.
There's definitely some intrigue there of
There's no mention of how he did that. He never mentioned that. Piri Reis.
No, the only mention is that he used older maps. None of the older maps have ever been discovered.
Okay.
Some people think it was from the ancient library of Alexandria, which we all know.
Yeah.
The fatal decision, what happened to that. A lot of our
Romans.
world mysteries. What if we knew? What if that has the pyramids
Romans.
and everything?
Dude, the Library of Alexandria, it probably had some really, really cool stuff in there. I bet so many mysteries would be solved if that just wouldn't have gotten burned down by the Romans.
Yeah.
Damn. So they think he may have looked at that map.
This is where.
But how would he have gotten it? He wasn't around till the 1500s. It's been burned down since BC. The Library of Alexandria.
Yeah. But they're just saying it was stored. We don't really know. These are just theories. We don't know where the other. We have never found any of the other sources that he used.
Really?
Of the map. What's interesting about that is that if you do subscribe to this theory that it's Antarctica, it meant that it had to have been mapped out in the air.
Really? From above?
From above.
Why is that?
Just the way how you could see, it's the only way you could see Antarctica back then, as a whole, deep. You think people would venture deep,
Yeah, you're right.
And but here's some issues. Also with the map that's kind of cool is that it uses Mercator projection, which was not a method used for 200 years. Not until the 1800s was this method used that was used in the map. because we didn't really know how to do latitude
Okay.
until we had these clocks, and then it was easier to do longitude and latitude and know exactly where to put these places. But this is all in the 1800s, and this happened
They
obviously.
didn't figure that out until the 1800s.
Yeah.
But this map was made in the 1500s.
Yeah, and this is also 300 years before people even supposedly knew Antarctica existed.
Wow. We didn't know Antarctica existed until
1800s, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We had no
No one had
idea.
ever gone there, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
And then come back to tell about it. So how do we know Antarctica had ice for that long? It's just something we know?
Yeah, it's something no.
Okay.
But here's some of the theories that maybe it was describing the Brazilian coast instead. So if you put the Piri Reis map with what we know, we match up with what we know, and it clearly shows Gibraltar Straits, the Strait of Gibraltar, and a tip in Africa, like clearly mentioned. So if you map it up, the map where Antarctica shows actually shows Brazil, and Brazil would be a warm climate. However, the geography of the mountains, like I said, does not match Brazil. It matches Antarctica.
Really?
But the shape does match Brazil.
The shape matches Brazil, and the area, like the location of where it is, kind of matches Brazil.
Yeah.
But the mountains and everything match Antarctica perfectly.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
And then but the skeptics will also say what it's basically showing is where Antarctica, what they're claiming to be Antarctica, is right by Chile and Venezuela, the South American countries, but it doesn't show Argentina.
Okay.
So if you take it by its sense, it's showing Argentina. It's showing Antarctica right next to the South American countries.
Okay. So Antarctica isn't exactly in the right place.
Yeah, it's not in the right location
on that map, but all the mountains and everything coincide perfectly.
Hargrove, the archaeologist who was working on this, he described that he had a theory for this, that Antarctica moved, that it was originally one time up there, and that it moved down. However, that has been disproven. And
I was going to say, in that short of a time period, I don't think so.
That has been disproven. So that is one element that you do have to consider, is that, it does kind of look like Brazil. Doesn't have the mountain ranges, and it is right next to all the South American countries.
Where Brazil would be.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It makes me think that it was Brazil, but it's just the way that the mountains line up so perfectly. And you said it's shaped just like Antarctica.
Yeah. Like I said, the Air Force, their cartography program said that these claims are reasonable. Like that, these mountain ranges show Antarctica without ice.
Wow.
It's just in this place where Brazil should be.
That's super interesting.
So if you describe to that theory, then it's like, it kind of has to be like there's either an ancient civilization that just traveled the world and charted these things out. Aliens could have mapped it out and gave it down. Or they're also saying because of how the map was made and how it was using this specific kind of way how to describe longitude and latitude, that maybe it's just as simple as where's it going to go? Oh yeah, maybe it's just as simple as that. The way that maybe it wasn't a lost civilization that used this method. Maybe this method was known by a credible civilization and just got lost through time.
Yeah.
What's also interesting is that the center of the map, it's not the North Pole. You know what it is?
What?
The Giza pyramids.
Really?
That's the center of the map. So
that makes me think that he was looking at some sort of ancient map when he did that.
So that's what these claims, if you do kind of describe to the Antarctica theory, that some of these maps might have been older than 4000 BC.
Wow.
So there's a lot of intrigue, especially and it shows that the Giza pyramids had some kind of huge importance to make that the center. So it's very interesting, and I think that's kind of why the Piri Reis map is such a mystery.
Did Piri Reis ever explain anything about why the pyramids are in the center?
No.
No.
It's just map that it didn't actually come to our eyes until like we kind of placed on a cylindrical scale and showed, oh wow, it actually shows the Giza pyramids as where North Pole should be.
Wow.
That's the center of the map.
That's crazy. There's even less known about this though, huh? Like we don't know much about it. We just don't know anything about what maps he used to create this.
No, we just know there was some Arabic maps, Indian maps, and supposedly one of Christopher Columbus maps, which we have not found. So,
dude, the Arabic maps could have had something. Could have been using like maps from ancient Egypt or something, or prior to ancient Egypt. Civilizations that have been lost now, you know.
Right.
Wow.
So it's just interesting. Like that map would have been from a warm climate of Antarctica, which would have been over 10,000 years ago. Which is it's just
crazy.
An interesting map that I guess we probably won't know what the real reason for the map is.
Yeah, that one I don't know if we'll ever know anything more about that. But it's really crazy.
Especially has how it shows Antarctica it's like it is so similar. Like
it's just perfect.
Yeah,
huh?
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, especially because we didn't even know Antarctica existed until the 1800s. That's like, and he made this in the 1500s, 300 years earlier. Wow.
So it's just like a mystery for you.
Yeah. It's a good way to end some mystery, bros.
Yeah, just two cool documents that will...
two really cool historical documents that are extremely mysterious and we'll never know anything about them. Isn't that fun? But yeah, this stuff really interests me. It really frustrates me that we won't ever know anything about these. It sucks because the question is so big. Like, how did we make that map, or like who wrote that book? We'll never know.
No, but
it's all really interesting stuff. I like going into historical mysteries and mystery bros.
We'll definitely do some more. We'll
get into some more. You know, we kind of change the category up. We'll do like supernatural something, and then we'll do historical, and then we'll do some aliens in there,
some murders.
Yeah, murder mystery. We kind of go into all of it. So, speaking of that, I don't know. Do we have anything planned for next week? Probably not. We never have anything planned on the time. We always figure it out. We'll leave you hanging again as far as next week's topic, but it'll be something good. Trust me. But yeah, thank you guys for checking out Mystery Bros. Check out our Facebook page. We have a Facebook group page. Just throw us a like if you're interested. Check out our, we drop all these on like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, everything. So make sure you check all that out. All of our stuff will be on there. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening, and peace out.
Mystery Bros. Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros. Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.